How's it going, everyone? In today's video, we're going to learn about FastAPI, which is one of the fastest and most popular Python web frameworks for building APIs. Personally, I really like FastAPI because it uses Python's type hints. It is very fast thanks to async support, and it automatically generates interactive API documentation for you, which is honestly a game changer. In this video, we're going to build a tiny joke API. It will serve a mix of Python jokes and jokes about Indently. It is a fun example because it naturally exercises a get route, a post route, path parameters, and query parameters all in one app. But before we dive in, I'd just like to thank Zed for sponsoring this video. Zed is an ultra-fast code editor written in Rust, and it's also the code editor that we will be using in today's video. If you feel like trying out Zed, I've left a link in the description box down below where you can download it for free. Otherwise, let's get started. First of all, we're going to import what we need, starting with choice from random, which lets us pick a random element from a list. Then we need to import UVcorn, which is the ACGI server that actually runs our FastAPI app in production. And you're going to have to remember to install it via pip or UV. Then from FastAPI, we're going to import FastAPI and HTTP exception. FastAPI is the app class, and HTTP exception lets us return errors. And once again, you're going to have to install FastAPI via pip install or UV add. And finally, we need to import base model from Pydantic. And as you guessed it, this is something you need to install as well. Next, we will create an instance of the FastAPI class. This is our application object that holds all our routes. Now we will define a Pydantic model for the joke the client wants to add. So here we will create a class that inherits from base model to define the shape. Setup will be the first line of the joke, which is also known as the setup. The punchline is the second line of the joke, and the tag is a short tag like Python or Indently, which we will use to filter the jokes. Next, we will define a starting collection of jokes, and each one of these jokes will contain a setup, a punchline, and a tag. For this example, we will use a list of dictionaries. And as you can see, some of the tags will be Python, and the other tags will be Indently. And now that we have some data to work with, let's define our first endpoint, which will be a simple get route at the root. So below the dictionary, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to use the get decorator, which registers a get route for the root path, which is this slash over here. The function will be called readRoute, and it will return the following dictionary, which contains a message that says, "Welcome to the joke API." What's nice about FastAPI is that it turns this dictionary into JSON automatically. Below that, we will add a get endpoint that returns a random joke with optional filtering. The get decorator registers a get route at /joke. Then we define a function which takes an optional tag as an argument and returns a dictionary. If the tag is not none, we will filter the jokes by the tag. If there are no jokes that satisfy that current tag, we will raise an HTTP exception that states that there were no jokes found with that tag. And we will also return a status code of 404. Otherwise, we will pick a random joke from the filtered list. And if the user does not specify a tag, we will just return a random joke. Next, we can add a get endpoint that uses a path parameter to return one specific joke. This will use a joke ID, which will be included in the path as a path parameter. And something else that's really nice about FastAPI is that it validates this type for us. Inside the function, we check that the ID is a valid index. If it's not, we raise an HTTP exception stating that the joke was not found. Otherwise, we return the joke located at that ID. And finally, I want to show you an example of a post request. So let's create one more function. And this time we will use the post decorator, which registers a post route at /joke. And once again, the joke parameter is validated against our joke model. Inside the function, we want to create a new joke and append that joke to the jokes. Then we will return a confirmation with the new ID of that joke. Now to run this, we can create an if name is equal to main check and call uvcorn.run with the app, the host, and the port number. And this is the programmatic way to launch the server. Here we want to bind to the local host only, so the server is not exposed to the network. And we want it to listen to port 8000, which is the FastAPI convention. Now to test this program, we're going to run our script, and if everything's set up correctly, you should see some info that states that uvcorn is running at this address. When you click on that address, it should open up your browser. To retrieve a joke, we can try the /joke endpoint and tap on enter. And as you can see, we got a setup, a punchline, and a tag. And each time we refresh the page, we will get a new joke back. Then, if we want to use a special tag, we can provide a query, such as tag is equal to Python, and tap on enter. Now we will only get Python jokes back. If we want to pick a joke at a specific index, we can do so by typing in /joke/index. So for this example, we can try to get the joke back at the index of 3. And this is what we will get as a result. And as I mentioned earlier, what makes FastAPI so powerful is the doc generation. So here we're going to type in /docs, and this will have all been generated for our project. What I really like about this documentation is that it allows us to test post requests. So here we're going to open that up. It's going to give us an example value. And if we want to test it, we just need to locate that test button, which is right here, try it out. And we can provide a setup. We can say, have you heard of Updog? The punchline can be, what is Updog? Oh, I absolutely botched that. Anyway, not much. What about you? Tag can be pathetic jokes. If we click on execute here, it will give us a response regarding that post request. And if we scroll down even further, we'll see the response body. Now this joke will be a part of the API. So if we were to go back here and type in jokes/5, it looks like we will get nothing back because it's supposed to be /joke/5. Now we will see the pathetic joke. Have you heard of Updog? What's Updog? Not much. What about you? And it will be included as a part of the random jokes. Although that relies on chance because we get a random joke back each time we refresh the page. And there's actually one last thing I want to show you. So open up your terminal and inside type in uvcorn main:app:\reload and click on enter. This will watch for changes in your project. And what that means is that every time you save your project, it's going to refresh your API automatically. For example, we could go back up to the initial jokes, copy this, and create another one, which in this case, we will just call A, B, and C. And we were to save the project, you'll see that inside the terminal, every time you click on save or you trigger a save, that it will refresh the project, which means you don't have to rerun the script each time you make a change to the API, which is very convenient for development. I believe this would be joke number 5. Yeah, as you can see, we have a setup, which is A punchline, which is B, and a tag, which is C. If we went back to our project and changed this to 1, 2, and 3, and saved our project, and then went back to the API and refreshed, you would see that that data will have had updated. So that command is just very nice to know about. Anyway, that just about covers everything I wanted to talk about in today's video. Do let me know in the comment section down below whether you have any other questions regarding FastAPI. maybe I'll create a series on it. So please let me know in the comment section down below whether you are interested in that. But otherwise, with all that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.